Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining to have this sort of intro to Vamos. I'm going to show you kind of the history of the app, and then I'll actually take you through it like a user uses it. So you will get a chance to see it. And of course, ask questions anytime. And if for some reason we don't get through everything, we'll just make another time and keep going. Let me see, where's my, oops, sorry, I need my screen.
Lori, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So are you the, I guess, what would you call it, the product owner of the app?
Yeah, that's a good question. For now, I think you would consider me the product owner, but that's just sort of temporary. So we had another person who was doing this role, who was really taking it on, and project management and product ownership and QA, everything. She left for another position, which is wonderful. But so I've always had contact with the clients, but because I don't have a tech background, it's, you know, I didn't know how to use Jira. I didn't know how to write tickets. And I have a lot of other responsibilities in the organization as well. So yeah, it's been it's been a journey. And Andrea and Cruz have been very patient with me. I feel so bad because I'm always telling them they have to explain things to me like I'm a toddler, or like I'll write a ticket, but I know they're going to have to rewrite it later because I don't know how to write it correctly. But yeah, let's see here. So yes, but for now, I'm sort of the product owner and that person who talks to the clients and kind of translates. And I'll show you actually what the clients fill out as their bug report form. Yeah, I can show you that as well.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here.
It is interesting. First time I heard this product owner profession week ago. One of the ladies who were CTD students, she was product owner, and like, what is this? And she is very experienced, and she just explained a little bit what she did on her previous job. Oh.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I didn't know anything about these different roles either, so I'm learning a lot myself. But it's definitely, yeah, it's very interesting. And in an organization like Code the Dream, where everybody does a lot of different things, like we all wear many different hats. So we have, you know, one person who's sort of going to be project manager and product owner and QA, whereas in a large tech company, there would be a different person for each of those roles. Or maybe even on each development team would have a different, a different one. So yeah, but it is interesting seeing how all of the different roles work together, and how it's so helpful to have an understanding of code, even if you're not a developer.
Right.
Yeah, great.
I never heard about this product owner. I thought this is the product owner is a client.
Right. That's it. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, here, and now I am going to, oops, let me see, I'll move this over here. I'll take you, you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to take you through this short little presentation that gives you a little bit more background about why we use Vamos and why it's an important tool. And so that includes actually sharing some information about farm workers, and how organizations do outreach to farm workers and why, and how Vamos came to be a product of Code the Dream. And then we'll talk about the sort of product vision, the big picture goal, and then a little bit more specifics of the team workflows. But then mostly what I'm going to be doing is taking you through Vamos and showing you how to use it like a user would. So yes, I want to share, to me, as I've already said, and as you know, I don't have the tech background, but I worked in farm worker advocacy for many, many years. So I have a closer background working with farm worker organizations and farm worker organizing and advocacy. So I always have just a very close place in my heart for this work and the apps that we do specifically with farm workers, as well, of course, as all immigrants, but farm workers sort of have a special place in my heart because of the work that I used to do. So I wanted to share a little bit of information because it's kind of an invisible population for most people. We all eat fruits and vegetables harvested by farm workers, but they're sort of invisible to the rest of the community. So there are about 2 to 3 million farm workers in the US. Of course, here in North Carolina, about 150,000 where we're based. And about 85% of fruits and vegetables are still hand harvested, so are not using machines. I always like to point out when we're talking about agriculture in the United States that really there is still this legacy of slavery, because that's the entire agricultural industry was built on the backs of slave labor of African Americans in the country. So that is the history of farm labor in our country. Even though the population has mostly changed. So the majority of farm workers now are immigrants from Mexico and Central America and other parts of Latin America. The majority are undocumented. However, there is a special visa for farm workers, which this will keep coming up, so it's important to know. There's a special visa for some farm workers called H-2A, which workers can, it's a guest worker program, and farm workers mostly from Mexico. Some small percentage of farm workers can come to the US to work on a seasonal basis under this H-2A legal work visa. And this is important because some of the clients that we work with who provide legal services to farm workers, they are federally funded. And if you get money from the federal government, you are not allowed to provide legal representation to undocumented workers. So they can only represent, say, US citizen workers, or if there's another kind of legal status, or H-2A workers. So it's a very important distinction, and a lot of the different organizations that we work with, if the different labor camps have H-2A workers. So you'll see that come up again and again.
Lori, one question on the legacy of slavery.
Sure.
Are you comparing the Black culture in the 17th centuries to now? Is that what's going on? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I guess not to compare it necessarily, that there's still, which I'll talk about next, there are still many, many abuses that happen with farm workers in the fields, but just that there's always been a legacy of racism and a legacy of very poor and abusive conditions in the fields. So that's, even if it's not slave labor now with African-American population, is still, that's the history of agriculture in our country, and everything is built on that. So I just think it's really important to point out, and there are conditions that are terrible in the camps still and in the fields. There are even occasionally conditions where workers have been held like slaves in modern day. But of course, I don't want to compare it to the institution of slavery, which, dominated our country for so many years, and left such an impact on the Black community and our country as a whole. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I got confused of the word legacy. I think I tend to think of legacy as a good word, and
okay.
Legacy in terms of a history, something that's
right. No, yeah, I certainly don't mean in a positive way at all. Just like that, as in the history of that the impact, I think, is still felt. So.
And are we living as a family, or it's only adults?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of the workers who will be, I guess, visited by people using Vamos. Most will be single men or unaccompanied men. They probably have families in their home countries. But there are some families, there definitely are some families who are living in homes, and maybe they work in farm work during the season, and then during the off season, they might work in construction or other jobs. So there are some families for sure, but mostly the families are living in one place and just work in the fields in the summer. But there are still migrant families that migrate to different places. But in general, we're seeing more unaccompanied men.
So I'm just wondering how it works. So the owner of the field, I don't know, strawberry, provides some peas, and those people are coming and putting tents, or they have some housing and water and restrooms. And when the strawberry is collected, they're leaving. I'm just trying to understand how it's working.
Sure. Yeah, they're great. Those are great questions. So usually, in some cases anyway, they're the grower or the farmer, like the farm owner, who we usually call a grower. The grower owns some kind of housing for the workers, and will provide that housing. The workers are allowed to live in that housing. Sometimes it's a trailer, sometimes it's a house, like you see in this picture. And the workers are allowed to live there, you know, during this growing season, or during the season while they're working. Then usually the workers do not have any transportation. So there's either a crew leader or a labor contractor or a bus driver, or maybe the grower himself will then drive the workers from their house in the morning to the fields where they work for the day, and then they drive them back at the end of the day. Yeah, that's usually how it works. Now, again, if it's a family, like you were mentioning, they are more likely to stay, if it's seasonal farm work, they may be living in that house year round. And then they would, just work in the fields. Maybe they have their own transportation, or maybe they also go with a crew leader or someone who's contracting for their labor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So why most of them are undocumented because of lack of quota, or what? Why some of them have this H-2A visa, some of them not? There are not enough visas, like.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's also some workers who may live here year round, and for undocumented workers who are in the country now, there's really, for the most people, there is, because of lack of immigration reform, there's absolutely no way for people to gain a legal status. So even if you've been here for 20 years, there is no path for many people. So for many people, anyone who was already here undocumented, there's no way for them to get a visa. They would just, have to work. And for many people, it's just, this is how they've always done it. These visas, there are a small, it's a very small percentage of farm workers who get these visas. And there are a lot of problems with the visa also, because it's very controlled. Like, yes, you have a protection in that you have a legal right to work, but that legal right to work is tied to one employer only. So if there's any abuses, that employer is your boss, your landlord, your visa, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of potential for abuses because it's a very captive audience. So there are some people who I think would prefer to be more free and be able to go where they want to go and leave when they want to leave.
Right.
So
it seems so much like the 19th century slave owner, where, like you said, they would own the property and they have so much control.
yes.
And I guess no accountability, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's exactly how it is. And that's true for H-2A workers and undocumented workers. But I mean, for the H-2A program, it's a lot of paperwork too, to go through. And so, yeah, it's definitely, it's abusive no matter what. It's still under very poor conditions. So, okay, these are really, really great questions, but let's keep moving. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So as you guys were already touching on some of the issues, but so some of the issues faced by farm workers are that there's just people living in poverty, a very low annual salary, long hours with very little money, very few protections. Farm work is actually considered one of the most dangerous occupations in the country because of all of the potential for illness and injury. Pesticide poisoning, body strain, machine injuries, heat stroke, and of course, more recently, COVID, because there's, living in the very close quarters. There were just in North Carolina, I think there was like 10 farm workers who died from COVID last year. Yeah, the housing conditions are very poor. And then of course the immigration status is another issue. So we kind of talked about all of those. Okay, so knowing all of these things, you see there's a great need for support for these workers. And so there's a number of different agencies. I mean, eventually, of course, what we want is that farm workers will be able to do their work with dignity for enough pay in a safe environment. But until then, there's a lot of organizations that are doing outreach to farm workers to help address some of these problems. So migrant health clinics, migrant education, legal services groups, church groups, humanitarian groups are going out to visit farm workers. And because they live in such rural areas, with no transportation, the agency staff have to go to them. So that's where the outreach comes in. So during the harvest season, which we're in the middle of right now, there are organizations that are sending people out every week to look for and visit workers. In most states, migrant housing has to be registered with the state. So there is a list that some of the organizations will get from migrant housing offices, as well as from the H-2A, from the H-2A program, the job orders that growers have to fill out. Their organizations will get these lists, and those are some of the lists that get imported into VAMOS, and we'll talk about that later. But basically, so in some cases, agency staff knows where the camps are. They call them migrant labor camps. In VAMOS, we call it sites because we know it might not be a camp. It might be a house. It might be, something else. But there is many times they're in very rural areas, very hard to find. I remember when I first started working on farm worker issues, this was like before, maps on a phone or anything, of course. And you would the directions were like, oh, go down the road after you see a big tree, turn left, and then you see a big rock, and then keep going down a gravel road, and then there's no street name, and just turn, that's what the directions were like. So they're very hard to find. The other thing is, there's so many labor camps that it's impossible to get to them all. So you really have to prioritize, like, okay, how do you decide which camps you're going to visit? Maybe you get a call from a worker that says, oh, there's a problem at that camp. So you have to, note that somehow and know, okay, I want to go to that camp, but then if I'm going to be in that county, I want to go to all the camps that are close to that one. So there's a lot to talk about in terms of planning outreach, deciding where to visit. Some organizations have goals of like, we're going to visit every camp in this county or something like that, and then of course the directions is a whole other big, big issue. Then once you're going on outreach on the day that you go, it's very, then you need to track which camps you visited and what happened on that visit. and if there were any problems that are going to need follow-up attention. Then after that, you will need to report on all of the visits that you've done, maybe that week or that month or that season, because all of these are nonprofit organizations. Maybe they're getting funding from somewhere that asks, you know, oh, you have to tell us how many workers you visited, what kind of issues you found, things like that. So then there's reports that have to happen afterwards. So these are all things that Vamos is trying to address. Let's see.
A question, Lori, on the directions.
Sure.
When you're talking about the directions, are the directions? I'm thinking it's a rural area, and I'm seeing myself driving, I guess, on these rural areas. And are you saying that literally some streets, I mean, maybe obviously don't have an actual sign? You know, this is the street. It's just a dirt road that ends up in a horizon. Is that
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So that, you know, having Google Maps now with latitude and longitude is really helpful. And I'll show you a really cool feature that we have that helps address some of that issue. I'll show you when we get in there. But yes, that absolutely happens. And it might be, so that's a whole other issue. We've had a lot of problems with the address versus the latitude longitude, because there might be, maybe the grower has an address, but to actually get to the camp, you have to go off the road down, you know, another dirt road, and that's where the camp is. It's not actually where the address is. So that's kind of complicated.
It could be a combination of both, of longitude and attitude and the address.
Yes, yeah. So as we've mentioned, I think I mentioned some of these things, but some of the challenges that outreach staff face when they're doing outreach is knowing where the camps are. And sometimes you might just find one too when you're driving along, maybe that's not registered. You may be driving along and you can see a trailer with clothes hanging out to dry, and you see, you know, a bunch of work boots, and you think, okay, that looks like farm workers live there, and you might have to add a new site. So I can show you how to redo that in Vamos too. But yeah, knowing if workers are at camps, these places are really far away. The outreach workers don't want to be driving out 2 hours and then to find no workers have even arrived yet. Matching up directions with the address, like we said, knowing who owns or runs the camps. Yeah, it's very, very rural. So the fact that there's no cell phone signal, that makes our offline mode really, really important, but that's, you know, not ready yet. But so some of the organizations still can't really use Vamos because it's still reliant on a cell signal. These organizations are very understaffed, very underfunded. So it's very important for them to plan outreach efficiently so they know which camps to visit, which ones are the priorities, which ones they've already visited, and which ones are close to each other. And then, of course, there's tracking and reporting on visits. That is also important. Okay.
Question. I'm so sorry, Lori.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah. When you say knowing if workers are at camps, how do you do that? How do you know if?
Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, especially with undocumented workers, you probably won't know unless you are used to, okay, this is when workers came to that camp last year, or this is when they work in this particular crop, in this particular, you know, oh, it's blueberry season this month, and you know, I know this camp works on blueberries. But if they are H-2A workers, which a lot of the workers are, who the organizations we are currently working with are serving H-2A workers, they actually, because it's run through a government program, there are actually dates on what they call a job order of when the workers are supposed to arrive and when they're supposed to leave. So those dates, when they're entered into Vamos, we can actually bring up, you know, who is supposed to be here, which sites are supposed to have workers at them during this time. So that's how we do that.
Okay. I was thinking if the tracking, I know at the bottom you say tracking. I was thinking if there was an actual way of tracking the workers with some kind of tracking device or something.
No. Just more of like, I guess, I mean, tracking the visits, for example, like how many visits over a certain amount of time, that kind of thing. I'll say, so anyway, so how Vamos originally came about is that there was there's one organization that was the first Vamos organization called Episcopal Farm Worker Ministry. It's a small organization in rural North Carolina. And they had a volunteer who was going out on visits with them. And it was after a hurricane hit in North Carolina, which farm workers are always, some of the most impacted by hurricanes, partly because in North Carolina, where a lot of the farms are in the eastern part of the state. So anyway, there was a volunteer who was going out to accompany Episcopal Farm Worker Ministry on their outreach visits. And this volunteer happened to be a software developer as his job. So as they're going out and they have all these papers with the notes about where camps are, and they have lists and spreadsheets and all these different things, he starts to think, oh, this is crazy. The way we do this, there's got to be another way. Why don't we build an app? So he built a very basic prototype for an app that would be used to track the visits that they had done. And after a while, he actually gave that app over to Code the Dream to continue to develop and help make it better and with more features and everything. So that is actually how we got started with Vamos, and Episcopal Farm Worker Ministry was the very first organization. And then they were so grateful to the volunteer and for the work that Code the Dream had done on it. They were like, you have got to share this with other organizations because it's so great. But then I think we sort of went too far too fast because we started adding on so many things that it got a little complicated. But of course, now it's in a better place, but that's how it started. We had, go ahead.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Wanted to ask if it was pros or cons that you've got already some version of Vamos, because when something is already set up and it may be not the best setup for further development, it may be kind of cons.
Yeah, and I would say the way that the volunteer initially set it up, it was not in Rails or React. So it was in a different tech stack. So we had to sort of, convert some things. And yeah, I mean, of course, he is a, professional developer for many years. So he sort of knew how to work with the data, and he was also a volunteer. So he knew what was needed by the organization. So he worked with our interns as sort of the product owner, project manager for a little while when it was still a very small team and it was just sort of a prototype. But yeah, and then, so yeah, I think that definitely, there were a lot of pros to that. But yeah, it's been an interesting process.
And when did it start? In 2020 or?
No, it was before that. I think maybe so when I started at Code the Dream in 2019, it was already, Vamos was already a prototype, but they weren't really using it yet. So yeah, maybe 2018, 2019.
So it's already 4th year, yeah?
Yes, but it was only last year was the first year that we had other clients besides Episcopal Farm Worker Ministry. But unfortunately, last year, there were so many bugs that they really couldn't use it. So it was a really big problem.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but yes, we're working on getting better.
Okay.
So last year, the Vamos team, we all worked together to create a product vision, which really serves to demonstrate what is Vamos, who is it for, why are we using it, how is it different than existing systems or anything else out there. So I'll just read this that the whole team came up with. Product vision. For agencies serving migrant and seasonal farm workers, Vamos offers a browser-based and native mobile application for the purpose of to plan, conduct, follow up, and report on outreach visits to labor camps, maximizing the organization's impact with people in need by facilitating data storage and communication across multi-user organizations. So the way that's different, unlike cumbersome paper forms or ad hoc database solutions, Vamos allows outreach staff to focus on the people they serve by providing an intuitive, efficient, convenient, and reliable solution for tracking camp and visit data, whether in the office or in rural areas all over the US. That's our vision. And we weren't there last year. We were not successful last year, but hopefully this year we are. Okay, so team workflows. There is a project wiki, which Lauren, our former product owner, project manager, put together, which is very, very helpful. And I'll go over that a little bit more also. I think you're already experiencing how the flow of the team, there's the daily scrums, there's the weekly planning and backlog grooming. We do the review and retro, as you saw yesterday. And yeah, we try to follow the agile methodology. I have actually, I don't know, maybe it would be helpful for you guys. For myself, when I started in this role, I made myself this like calendar chart that tells me when everything happens for each sprint. So I know, okay, I need to get an issue in backlog grooming and ready to be groomed by this date if I want to get it in, for next sprint. Or I need to make sure that these issues are in review and someone has reviewed them by this date so that they'll be included in the deployment. So it's taken me a little while to kind of get a handle on that cycle, especially for me, because, if I'm hearing if a client reports a bug, they're thinking like, oh, here's this little thing, invalid date comes up. Okay, they think, oh, we can just go in and fix that. But, actually, okay, unless it's a super, super important bug, okay, that's going to go in the process. The very earliest it'll even get in there is minimum 2 weeks, probably 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So we have to be very careful about prioritizing, okay, what's the biggest need? When do we get it in and how do we assign it? So those are all things that I'm learning to think about. Let's see. Okay.
Have you ever missed something that was important and missed the actual date and it's delayed even longer?
Oh yeah, many, many, many times. Yes, so many times. That's why now I think it's actually just the last couple sprints I feel like are going better because, well, for me, because I have a better understanding of how everything works, because it's a complex process. And, if I report before it was like, oh, I report a bug and then there's a deployment and I'm like, oh, well, where's the bug fix? It's not like, oh, well, it didn't get reviewed, or it didn't, it didn't make it in, or it wasn't assigned to anybody. It's like, oh, okay, no, I have to push for it to happen this time and that time. So I think it's important also for the developers to think about and be aware of, okay, which things are, okay, really important to address, immediately. So yeah, but with Vamos, there's so many, so many needs. It's hard to prioritize them all. Okay. Let's see. I think you're already getting your, the repos, the Jira getting set up with. Are you in Jira?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You're in the Slack channels. You're in? There's Vamos. There's, I think, Vamos front end. I don't know if there's a Vamos back end channel.
There is.
Okay. I don't think
I'm not in the Vamos backend.
I don't know, Miguel. Can you add Inara?
Oh, you mean an actual channel?
Yes.
Oh, I was thinking of a meeting. We just had a back-end meeting. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
I see Vamos notification and Vamos errors. No backend.
Right. Yeah, I was
Okay.
thinking the
Maybe there's
backend
not.
meeting, not the backend channel. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, maybe there's not. Yeah, that's fine. There's a front end channel. Natalia, I don't know if you're in that one.
Yeah, yes, I am
Okay.
in that one.
Okay. And then when it's your turn to do QA, you'll get on the QA channel too, but you don't have to worry about that right now. Okay, then there's the calendars. Yep, you're working on getting your environment set up. And we'll go through some of this at the end. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so that's the background. And now I have to do a very fast tour. Let's see, can you see here? Oh, hold on, let me move this over here. Okay.
Lori, if I can ask, as far as the application is concerned, have all the major goals of the original concerns have been met, since this has been ongoing for a couple of years? I mean, you mentioned the planning, the actual when you're actually visiting, and then the follow-up. Have the major concerns been addressed, and now we're just addressing smaller needs, or you still have a huge need that hasn't been addressed, if that makes sense?
Oh, that makes sense. I was just thinking about how to answer. I mean, the app, the way it is now, it goes way above and beyond the original MVP. So in that sense, yes, it's gone much, much further. However, I think what we found, well, a number of things. One thing was when we started to add more and more features, because when we started to open it up to more clients, we would meet with the client and they would say, oh, but do you have a sortable spreadsheet? Because that's the way that we organize our data. That's the only way we do it. And I don't know if we can use Vamos if we don't have this sortable spreadsheet. Or somebody else said, oh, but we absolutely need, these particular fields in our visit form. We can't use this if we don't have those fields in our visit form. And then somebody else said, oh, well, we absolutely need this. So then and part of it was probably my fault because I didn't know any better. And I'm thinking, yes, we can build anything. We're an amazing team. We can build it all. That's a very bad product owner, very bad product owner. Yeah, that was a long time ago before I knew anything. But then, so we started adding on, instead of just really focusing, making sure what we had worked very well. But when we started adding more organizations and adding more features, that's when it just then it stopped working. Then nothing worked. So even the original features didn't work. So then we just had to spend a long time, really working on fixing everything and improving our own processes, like adding the QA, like adding, there's so many different steps that we weren't doing before because it was just a small little team trying out something new. But now all of a sudden we have, 6 different clients all with their own needs, and they're really going to be using this, and they're importing all their data, and everybody's having trouble. And, so I don't know if that answers your question, but so in some ways, I mean, it goes way beyond the initial MVP, but we introduced so many problems that we had to kind of go back and slow it down to make sure the essential functionality was working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And but yes, there are still a couple of really big features that we'd like to add later, and I'll talk about that at the end if we get to it with the roadmap. But yes, there are some big things like around the reporting features, for example. That's a big one. That's not there. We have some reporting which I can show you, but it's not very good. It would be really great and really useful if we could really build out better reporting features. So that's something, if we ever get to it, would be nice to add.
Lori, I have a question. How do you sign up to this application? Because when I open it, I see only sign in table, but no sign up.
You have to be added. Yeah, you have to be added. Let me see. I actually can probably add you. Do you want to be added to Code the Dream organization? You can probably add
Yes.
yourselves on the back end. I don't know. Let me see. Okay.
If you add me, I can see the sign up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you
Lori,
so much.
Yeah. Sure.
Lori, when you say the reporting, are you saying the social workers per se that need to report to wherever they are accountable to? Is that what you're saying? The government or something?
Or the well, even for their own purposes. Natalia, is your email just Natalia@CodeTheDream?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to put you G for now and you can fill it in. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. You should all be in Code the Dream organization. Now they've added me into all of the organizations, which is nice, but I think that has, Andrea says there's problems sometimes. I don't know if it's the caching or what. There's sometimes problems with when you're in multiple organizations. So you might want to just start with Code the Dream organization. But yeah, when you, oh wait. Oh yeah, so Miguel, I think it's really even just yes, that all of that is helpful for reporting for external organizations, but even for the internal, we can export a spreadsheet right now. That's as much as we do. Did you get an email yet, Inara?
I don't see it yet. I see it.
Okay, it'll come through.
I updated it. Yeah,
I see.
confirm.
Yes.
So I'm gonna change what I'm gonna do here. I was going to start by giving you sort of the full tour, but what I'm gonna do instead is give you the example of how most users are going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can go back and show you more details. So let's say that we are the outreach team here. We're gonna go on outreach for Code the Dream and visit some of the labor camps.
Mm-hmm.
When you first come in to the sites, this is the site index page.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you see all of the cards here and they are paginated. There's other ways to display it. The map is what a lot of organizations are going to use. And you can see all the sites. This was actually a big issue. It's just a recent change. Previously, there was a problem because the sites on the map were also being paginated. So you were only seeing 20 sites at a time. And that was a big problem because just like, like here or in the table view, this is another view, you can see, okay, there's just the first 20 sites and then because it has to do with how it's loading the data, right? So it will load quicker if there's fewer sites to load. Mm-hmm. And then of course you can go to a different page, you can go to the next page. But for the map, which is how most people are going to use it, it was only loading 20 sites and there was no way to change that. And that was very frustrating, of course, for the organizations because they want to see their sites on the map. Mm-hmm. So this was something that was recently fixed. So now you can see, okay, these are a bunch of different sites. Now the different colors and the different symbols have meanings. Gray means no priority. Red means high priority. There's also yellow and green for medium and low priority. The dot means it's an active site. The X means it is not, it's an inactive site. And then there's also a question mark, which means it needs to be reviewed. And eventually there's actually, I think, a ticket out now or soon to build a legend that tells you, all of those things. So you don't just have to know it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people will be now, okay, we have sites all over the place because of course we have developers who are experimenting in different places, but most most people are going to have it all concentrated in one state, of course, most organizations. And probably what they would do is they would be looking maybe for where their last visits were. Well, okay, I'll have to go through a little bit to show you first. I'll just tell you another thing that's about to change soon. Alton and Narayan just finished this. I think it's done and it should come out with the next deployment. This table is going to change and it's going to be sortable. So that's like a big victory, because there was that organization that told me we have to have a sortable table, and we haven't had that until now. So that should be coming with the next deployment. So that's exciting.
Lori, and I have a question. When you make a deployment, you do deployment both for web version and for mobile version, or they kind of maybe a separate timeline for the same feature in different versions?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Usually it's different. The web deployments, we're trying to standardize them a little bit more. So we actually there could be a deployment today. It's usually on the Wednesday after the sprint. And Andrea, for the mobile deployment, it's not as often. But I'm not sure, she might be trying to get into a more regular cadence, but the web deployment should be every 2 weeks on the Wednesday after the sprint. And the mobile is just sort of whenever Andrea is ready, if there's a lot of things to go out. But that's a good question. Okay, let's just do so yes, that's how you can see the different views. The advanced search, this is another thing that's recently been improved a lot. And we're now using Elasticsearch to be able to do fuzzy searches. So you can search by, just a partial name. You can search by, status, active, review, inactive. You can search by county. That's very useful. Okay, let's find the ones in Durham County. Okay, yeah, there's all of our camps in Durham County. And this is what we were talking about, Miguel. This is how you can search by worker presence for when their arrival and departure is. And you can also search, now this was not working, so I'm not sure what happened, if it's working now, but you can also visit or check to see if a camp has been visited during a certain season, which is really helpful, because if you want to, as the organizations are trying to prioritize which camp am I going to visit, they need to know, has it been visited or not? So then they might, take a look at, look, these are Durham camps that have not been visited during this season. And then you can see, these are high priority camps. Okay, so maybe I want to, prioritize visiting these. Okay, so once you start to decide what camps you're going to visit, you can build a route. So this is like this is a pretty new feature, big rollout. This was the biggest, rollout that we had. I'm not going to create a new route. You can create a new route that way, or when you go to routes, you can either build a route or choose one that's already been created. So let's look at Michigan camps. Okay, this one's still coming up. Okay, don't worry about that for now. I'll look at that later. Oh, this is weird. Why? Oh, that's right. Okay. So in the routes, we're in search mode. Someday, these are just like tons of little things, like someday I think this search and path mode should be more central, because it's very important. You're either looking at it in search mode, or this is path mode. This is what we have. This is the route that already exists, and it tells you, wait a second. Look at this. This appears to be a bug. What is this? Kevin test. Okay, let me. Okay, I'm going to delete Kevin. Yes.
So the routes can be interstate.
Yeah,
between-
but I mean, that's nobody would do that, it just because in the Code the Dream organization, if you look in the other organizations, they're all going to be, in one place. Like, let's look at, Legal Aid, North Carolina Farm Worker Unit. Oh, they haven't used routes yet, but if you look at their, I chose the wrong one. They have so many. See, we're having some problems with these over here. It's because the latitude and longitude is set for 0, 0, and that's the middle of the Earth. Yeah, so normally they would all come up just within a state, in one state.
And how would the maps work with the offline version? Would those be off, or is there some way of making it work?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, we cannot control what happens with Google Maps, right? I mean, that's you can maybe download a map for offline use in Google, but you would just be able to access your routes, but not necessarily navigate. But that is exactly why we have this new feature that Brian just did, which is, see, now here we have to click on path. Oh, I just have an idea for something we need to change. I think it would be better, don't you think, when you go to routes and you're clicking on an existing route, it would be better if it was automatically on path mode, right? Instead of search mode.
Yeah, that's a default, right?
Well,
Yeah,
right now,
that's
search
the
is the default.
Yeah. Path
In
as a-
search, it shows you everything because they might want to add another one. That's why it has to show you everything. But it should default to path mode. I gotta make a note of that. I'll make a ticket for that. See, that's an example of something. It's like, okay, it's not going to stop the app from being used, but it really is a better user experience if you are doing that. Okay.
It seems that, yeah, it seems that if because this app is so important to so many, that it might as well be continually updated and maintained, just as an ongoing process, because the demands are there.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing that I put in the ticket for is, see how it jumps so fast? I have asked that to change because it jumps all over. Like, yes, we want it when you hover over here, we want it to show up, but it moves too fast. I see that it's 2:30, or for me, I know it's different time for you all. Can you all stay on for a little bit longer, or what?
Yes. I'm fine.
Okay, I can stay on too. Is that
Yeah,
okay,
that's fine.
Natalia?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, great. Let's keep going because it's hard to find time. Okay, so here we have, so this new feature that was just rolled out by Brian, it's so cool, is it actually brings directly in the directions here, so you can print it out, knowing that you might not have access online, so you can print it out in the office. The other thing that's connected with, which is super cool, is you can now open this route directly in Google Maps. And so that's, very cool, because then they can just navigate directly from there and then go back to the app for, adding in the visits. So yes, that's a very cool feature. So probably though, let's go back to how an organization would use this. So they're saying, okay, we're going to plan an outreach visit for tomorrow night. Okay, so actually I will build a new route. We'll say test outreach for, and then we can put the date for tomorrow. All right. And then, can we put a description or not? Okay, so here's our camps. And now we get to our advanced search bar, so we can actually look for, okay, now is when I want to look for, okay, all the camps in Durham County. Okay, okay, so I'm gonna add these to my route. Let's test, add to route. Let's see, add to route. Let's see. Add to route,
Oh,
add to route. Look, there they are. It's amazing. We get this nice little notice, stop was added successfully. All right, our route has been saved. Let's see. So yeah, so now it's there. So if we go to our routes, we see, where's the date? Okay, here, test outreach 6/9. And we can look at it with the path. There it is. We can rearrange. Yeah, this drives me crazy.
And then you see roads. Are they sorted by name or by creation date?
You know, I don't know how they are arranged first. It's probably, oh no, it's by creation date. So like, or by when I added them to the route. But then you can move them around, like, yeah, so it's by when you added them to the route. But yeah, then you can move them around. And I can say, oh, you know what? It makes a lot more sense for me to go to this Camp 3 second. So let me do that. Yeah. Then 3, 4, 5. Oh yeah, that's a pretty good route there. So yeah, so then the next step would be they would go on their mobile. Now that you guys have are signed into Vamos, you can download the app from the App Store, Vamos Outreach. If you search for Vamos Outreach, it's pretty much the only thing that comes up. Let's see. Okay. I'm just gonna log out, log back in. Oops.
Lori, and if I can ask, when an organization approaches the app, do you guys keep, I guess, data, how the users are using the data or that using the application? Like how are the maybe a organization goals, and what are the features that they mainly go after, or is there some features that you know that this is how they actually go, or mostly used, or that they go after?
Yeah, I would say I have a pretty good idea of that from meeting with the clients, because we meet with them regularly. Especially when we're having so many problems, we're meeting with them on a regular basis. But yeah, different, like legal aid, they don't have any routes yet. They're not using that. And then Episcopal Farm Worker Ministry, I think they don't have any contacts because they haven't been using that feature. So it's like everyone is using a different feature. Hopefully someday they will integrate all their data to be able to use them all. SMERLS, the Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services, they probably use it most robustly. They have really been a very close partner in advising us on the development. And so they are the ones who probably use almost every feature. But just to show you online, or if you log in yourself, you see, at the bottom, there is a space for routes. I'm just gonna click on routes. Let's see. This is what it looks like. Okay. And then I find the route. Interesting. They don't have, here's another feature. See, every time you look at it, you think of find something else you should change or add. For the routes on mobile, I think we should add the date. But again, that's not a very big thing. But if you call it test route, well, I have a million things called test route, but it doesn't show the date that I set. So so I'll put these in as tickets, but it's, low priority. Another test. Okay. Okay.
And Lori, when you went at the app right now and you set up this route, do you normally would set up a route in a big computer, or you can set up the route in a phone?
No,
So
you cannot set it up in a phone. This is how we envision it being used. They will do the planning on computer. So they will set up a route on the computer. They will sort and order the camps on the computer. Then once it's in there, then they'll go into the mobile once they already have it. And okay, let's see. Okay, so here's our camp list. Okay, so I'm going to click on the first one and it takes me to the site detail page. Okay, now you can see there in the top, there's a box for directions from the site detail page. Click on, what happened? Click on directions. It asks you, how do you want to open it? Okay, I want to open it in Google Maps. Okay, and it weird. Okay, that's
All right. And I want to ask, so I see you're logged as a manager, and I also logged in as a manager. What other options do you have?
Yep, that's a good question. And to be honest, I'm not sure what is functional right now for the other. There's the manager, planner, and user. Manager can do anything. Planner can can do certain things, but can do most things, but cannot delete. And a user, the idea is it would be more for volunteers because they cannot delete sites, they cannot edit data besides if it's a note that they added, something like that. But that was the original idea, that there's user, planner, manager. But to be honest, during the whole last year, we were just so focused on getting the functionality to work correctly for managers that we weren't. I do not know what the status right now of planner and user is. So that's something we need to find out.
Why are they separate? I mean, why there is a mobile app and desktop app, they are separate? Why it's not the same application that you can have mobile mode, mobile view, and use it everywhere, just one application? Why?
Yeah, well, that would have to, I mean, technically you can do that on Vamos if you go to, vamosoutreach.org. If you go to the website from your browser on your phone, you could do that. But, it's just because it's a native mobile application, because the idea is that it'll be much easier to use. And then it also gives us the ability to do offline mode, so to be able to use it without being connected to the internet.
Okay.
And it's slightly different functionality. Like, if you go to a site here, there's no place to click on directions, because the idea, we are not thinking that people are going to navigate from here, though actually there's an organization that uses their laptop from the car. But we think that, you're going to be using your phone for the directions, but when you're on the computer, you're going to be using it for different functionality. There's just a lot more you can do. I think the mobile app, it's designed really for you to put in your, once you're at the camp, then you can add photos. You can take photos from there directly from the app. When you're at the camp, take a picture, upload it.
Yeah.
And then this is where you add like the
it's working.
And note. Okay, great. Yeah, so you can see.
And in the picture, when you take pictures, that would also be part of the reporting part, where you want to export something and so forth.
That is an excellent question. I do not think there's any way to export photos right now. Yeah, in fact, I'm sure there's not. That is a great question. You should follow up on that and ask about exporting photos. Yeah, it's funny too, we're working with that team on offline mode, and there's all of these things like that we didn't think about. Like I asked them, you know, their first steps are to get visits and sites accessible offline. And I said something the last time we met. I said, oh, does that include photos? And they were like, wait, what? Photos? And I was like, yeah, photos. And like, we don't know. It depends on how they're stored. And then so Andrea was telling them how that's stored, and they were like, nope, that's not going to include photos. It's a whole separate thing of work to figure out how to like where the storage is and everything. So yeah. But yes, so this is what it looks like when you're in the site detail page. Yep, if you can put photos. Oh, this is what we were talking about the other day, is the, you know, there was a blank photo that was uploaded. Oh, this is a cool feature. Okay, this is photo, this is the map. Okay, so you can see the map right here. This is a very cool thing where if the latitude and longitude, or if the address does not show exactly where the camp is, when you're in this mode, you can move this and put it to the right place. And it asks you, do you really want to update location within? Yes. Now let's look at the latitude and longitude to see if it changes. Okay, so that end longitude is 019.148. Let's see if it changes. Yep, it changed. But the address did not change. So that's another thing that's like kind of a big deal in Vamos. It's like you might have an address and the latitude and longitude might not line up, but that's what we want because of this. That keeps coming up, especially if we have new apprentices, then they don't understand, like, oh, shouldn't we, you know, whenever we update the address, shouldn't we also update the latitude, longitude? No, not necessarily, because you might have dragged it to a different place on purpose. Okay, so that's an example. What else? Okay, we have groups. Groups are like, we're not using this as much now that we have routes, but I still think it's very useful. You can put groups in, you can put different camps into a group for whatever reason, like, oh, maybe these are, and now that we have advanced search, this is maybe even less need for it, but I still think it's good. Like you can just create a group for whatever, Durham County camps, or you know, maybe camps with more than 100 workers, or you know, camps with a really bad grower, or you know, something like that. There's different reasons you might want to create a group. Okay.
A group of farm workers, as far as your criteria of what you think, you know, you want to group them by.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, what else? From the site detail page, let's see. So this is where you see all the details about the site. Okay, and this is where, and this is where your groups are. You can choose a group, you know, to add, and it appears here. That's a nice UI that didn't used to be there. Oh, it might be nice to have more padding here at the bottom. Anyway,
I can see why now you're saying it's complicated, because it has a depth to the application as you go deeper.
oh yeah, there's so much. And anything you change, like if a client or even a developer says, oh, we want to do this, that's like, okay, it could touch so many different areas. And that's where we were getting messed up before. I think someone would make a change in one place, not looking at what all the other areas it touches. So for example, we just had a new feature request, from a client, which I think would be great, but we're not going to do it right now. They want to have another space like this, which is when they attempted a visit, but the visit was unsuccessful. So they went there, they went to the camp, but they tried to visit, but there was nobody there. So the problem is, if you list that as a visit, because you could put that in as a visit.
Right.
However, if you then go to advanced search to do visit history, then it's going to come up as if that camp was visited, because the data reads it as, oh, there's information in the visit
What-
area.
What if the status of visit should be added, a separate column like status, green, yellow, and red next to this very table.
Oh,
Like,
the clients
if
would
it's-
love that. The
If
clients
it's
would love that.
yellow, it's partially visited, like
Yeah.
attempted. If it's red, it's not. If it's green, it is. And the search can be linked to this particular
Yes.
feature. And
Yes, the clients would love that. That's perfect. But it's very complicated. We actually, Ramiro talked about doing that, but it's like, then it's like, oh, well, how does the importer handle that? How do the other tables handle that? And it would require so much work that we can't do it right now.
with all the controllers, I think so, yeah. And modals and yeah.
That would be great. The way you described it would be perfect. They would love it. They would love it. With the colors, they would love it. But then you see where it's like, oh, it just seems like a little thing, but that's actually a big thing.
You're
That's
right.
actually a bigger thing. Yeah, but it's so good. But here you can see the visits. You can add a new visit. And of course, we are expecting people to do this on mobile. But what was happening with Vamos before is that when people weren't able, even now, if people can't use it because it's no internet or something, they'll just write down all the details on a paper, and then they will come and they will put it in the computer later. Okay, whew, okay, here's some more information. So new visit, we'll just add some stuff in. So it's today. We're taking off, you'll see there's work in the backlog to remove the time because there's no need for time here. Purpose is just to test outreach visit. I'll say I'm the leader, and then we've got Inara, Natalia, Miguel. Let's see, there was 10 workers today. We spoke to 5 of them. Concerns, wages, water quality, housing. Okay.
All right, and I know it's not about coding, but I just wondering how the owners of those sites are looking for those outreach visits.
That's a very good question. A lot of the owners do not like it. They don't like people coming on to their property to talk to their workers.
Yeah, that was my question too, because they don't know, or they do know about this application, about this like records. No, they do.
No, definitely not. Now they know about, especially like the lawyers, most of the growers do not like the lawyers. They don't like them coming. Some of them don't even like the healthcare workers coming to talk to the workers. They can be very possessive, and yeah, exactly, Miguel, exactly.
So can they still enter workers, or they need the permission from grower?
They can legally, they can still enter. You can imagine if you are renting an apartment, you're allowed to have visitors to your apartment. You don't have to ask the owner of the apartment building if you can have a visitor. But sometimes the owners do make problems. Yeah.
They don't want to be caught like something they do unlawful.
Yeah.
stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Now,
I'm so sorry, Lori. Is there or should there be a reporting or a section where you report a problem?
yeah, we are getting to that. That's next.
Okay.
Hold that thought. That's next. Okay, so I want to point out that, and I'll show you more later. Oh, let me see. Oh, annotate. Great. Let me annotate here. Here to here, these are default fields. This comes with Vamos. Oops. Wait a second. Okay. This comes with Vamos. Everything else is what we call a custom field. Actually, there's one more thing that comes with Vamos, and that is this donations here at the bottom, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the rest of this is custom fields, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But basically, we created this because, like I said, there was organizations that were coming and saying, "Oh, well, our outreach form needs all of this information," and then we realized, okay, every organization is going to have its own list of what they want to collect. There's no way we can create a form that's going to suit everybody's needs. So we created what's called the ability to make custom forms and custom fields. With custom fields, you can add your own fields, and the user can add their own fields into the visit form, the site form, or the contact form. So for example, all of those, let's see, all of the rest of the things that you see here, when to follow up, priority site, organizational lead, worker concerns, all of these things are ones that I added, just as examples. And anybody can add their own, a manager can add their own custom fields. And so the way that it works is you have, either a multi-select, a text field, number, heading, excuse me, a select, line, or a date. So I don't know, does anyone have an example of a field we could add?
So this column,
Okay, let's just say,
Do we have a route?
well, we wouldn't need a route. Let's just add, we'll add a multi-select for, maybe staff who have visited. We're just making this up, and we'll put Lori, Inara, Natalia. Okay, you can just say whether or not this is a required field. You can choose to encrypt the data. That was important for a lot of the legal services organizations. And then the order sometimes gets like a little messed up. I think it'll auto correct there. Let's see. Yep, there we have number 8. Now let's go check it out. So let's see. In our visit, let's see. Look, here it is, staff who have visited. We all went there. Okay. So that's how organizations can build out their own visit forms, as well as, yeah, you can do the same with sites. So you can, oh, it's moving slow now. I think I'm, okay. The site data would go here. So all of these you see are custom color. Who's responsible? Snack preference. Next visit target date. All of that is custom. Okay, now getting to Miguel's point, if there is a problem at the camp, that is where notes come in. Yeah, I'm going to make a note about maybe a little more padding at the bottom of the site detail page. Okay. Let's see this note. What's happening? Oh no.
And all this information is being saved in your, as you're doing this, it's being saved in the computer, right? Or
no.
Database.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're creating new fields, new records on your database.
Yeah. Look, it's going really, really slow now.
Yeah, it is.
So we've been having this, it's a memory issue, I think. We've been having this problem sometimes. Yeah, I don't know if it's because it keeps reloading the data. Yeah, this is not good. Ah,
Mhm.
all right. But look, it's not doing it right. Come on. Oh, I feel like it got tired. It's like, you guys have been looking at me for too long. Well, I don't know if it'll help. I'm just gonna log out for a second. I'll come back in. And you can see how frustrating that would be for a client.
Yeah, it is. It should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah,
But I think offline mode would be much faster.
yeah. And offline mode will only be for mobile though. It will not be for web.
Mhm.
I can tell you though, for in notes, what we have, you put in the date, the title of your note. Oh, see, it also might be, it gives me more problems because I'm a member of so many organizations. Let's see.
Lori, can I ask you a question on, you mentioned that your heart is really for these people, and I really appreciate that. As far as your vision, what would you like to see in this application that maybe it's substantial to help these people? I know this form is to also help the people that are helping the folks, you know,
Yeah.
but to also have in mind the folks that are in need of this stuff, you know, and how it can further that help into their lives and be more productive.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this app is specifically for the organizations. I think there's actually another app that Code the Dream has built called conectatecarolina.org, which is the target audience is farm workers in North Carolina. But we've actually been approached by another organization that's interested in building a simple web or a simple mobile app for farm workers also to track wages, to wage an hour, so that they can be able to report and record if there's any problems with their wages. So yeah, I think that's really cool. I do not think farm workers as workers themselves need to be using Vamos. It's just too much. It's just too much. I would rather have something that's more useful for the workers, you know? So that's my opinion. Just you really have to think about, I guess, your audience, you know? Yeah, because actually there was a client that was asking us about that. Oh, it's like, oh, could we attach something on this that workers would use? And it's like, you know what? It's way too much. Like, just if you're going to create something for the workers, it needs to be designed with the workers in mind. So yeah, that's my opinion. Okay, here's Bill's Blueberry Farm. You can see the notes. We have 2 notes on there already, and you can see they are prioritized by color. So red is the highest priority, yellow is the lower priority. And we're also encouraging organizations, they can use this because this color shows up on the map, if you may remember. So they could also use this in different ways, like, oh, if, you know, I think like you said, Inara, I think like the visit, if a camp has been visited or not, people would really like that, like a color or something.
We already have this feature in use. We can transfer it the same, like copy and paste and do some tweaks and code.
But that would be too complicated because if you're using the same color feature, then how would it show up on the map? We already have the color scheme for one feature. So anyway, let me just.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be something different, but yeah. So here you can see the date of the note, the problem, and a description. And you can, of course, come here to edit the note if you want. And here's where you can add, you know, is it open, closed, or review? And what is the priority? High, medium, low, no priority. No priority, it shows up gray. Low is green, medium, yellow, red, high.
That's great.
Yes, so that's where you report the problems. Now, here's a problem. I've submitted this one recently. On mobile, let's see. If you go to the mobile, why is that? If you go to mobile at the bottom, there is a place where you can go to notes index right there. Okay, it shows you all the
I
notes.
see it. I see it. Mhm.
But look, on the web,
Blueberry?
there's no place to access the notes. You can export all the notes into a spreadsheet, but there's no
Ah,
place to look at just your notes here. So, and I mean, you can, let's see, I guess you could you could look for the priority. Like I want to see all the high priority sites. Okay. So you could do that. Okay, so this is driving me crazy. I'm going to fix this. So this is how I've been fixing it. Let me see. Let me see something real quick. I'm just going to copy these. Oops. No. The way that you fix this now is just to change the, see, it happens when there's no, it's not, what it needs to be doing is putting in, when there's a latitude, longitude, when there's no latitude or longitude given, then it should be putting in based on the address. But it doesn't, well, okay, I'm not gonna fix that now because this is Renton, Washington. Yeah, all right, fine, I'm not gonna fix that now.
And all the maps that are being used, it's all Google Maps, right? Or
I think so. I think so. You have to ask somebody on the team that exactly. I don't understand this. I don't know, Natalia, maybe with on the front end. I don't know. I don't understand the padding here. Because like, look, here there's plenty of space, but as soon as you start opening things up, then it like, there's no space anymore. It doesn't maintain the same amount of padding. Anyway.
I think yeah. So application is just starting, and probably a lot of UX issues, small one. Yeah. But if you want to redo a lot of visual part, it's kind of also a lot of tasks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you saw what Josimar did yesterday when he standardized a lot of the UX on the pages on mobile. So it's just lots of little things like that that need to be done in addition to sometimes big things happening. Okay. What else?
Do most of the, I'm sorry, Lori, do most of the errors that are coming up are those user entries that are deeper into the app? Or you know, as you pry more on the features, is that where most of the, or I guess, bugs come in, or they can just pop up anywhere?
You mean like how do we discover them, or how, like where? Usually it's like the user trying to do something that doesn't work or has a problem, and then they notify us, and then there was a problem in the code, or somebody had fixed something else. That happens all the time. You fix one bug and you don't realize it affects something else. It creates another bug, but you don't realize it at the time. So yeah.
Or sometimes it's fix another bug as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So okay, I think that you've now seen most things. Let me see. Sites, yeah, all of that. Site detail. Okay, photos, groups, routes, custom fields. I showed you custom fields. Oh, contacts. I'll just show you that briefly. Contacts is a somewhat newer feature. Basically, what used to happen is that in the site info, it used to just be a text field for the grower or the contact, basically. But then what we ended up doing is changing it, creating a separate table, a whole separate model for the contacts, so that they can be associated. I get a many-to-many relationship, I guess, so that they can be associated. So now there's all of these contacts, and you can see it gives you the contact information. These are the custom fields that you can add to track your contact. Personally, I think we need to add some things to the default, like I think address, city, state, zip should all be part of contact. And then here's the related sites. So you can see all of these sites are related to this one grower, which is very helpful. For example, imagine if you were, a legal services organization and you see that one particular grower has problems with all, has high priority issues at all of their camps. Okay, that's a problematic person. There is a site update log where you can see when it was added, but I think there's a lot of problems with this and this site, how the sites are associated with the seasons. It's a little weird. So anyway, I cannot even explain that because I don't understand why it shows up like it does. So I'm not going to talk about that right now. So yeah, that's basically it with the contacts. Yeah, and this site update log is basically because they might change, right? Like one grower might be related to one contact 1 year and not another year. So this is the update log for how they're updated. And then of course, within the sites, you can see the contacts, here. What else? Contacts. Okay, imports or exports was another thing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on the mobile. Yeah, just the mobile app was where we had a lot of problems last year in particular, just like crashing for no reason all the time. Like people just couldn't use it. But that's gotten much, much better.
Is that on both mobile, Android, and iOS, or just one or
Yes,
the other?
both. Okay, imports and exports, just briefly, I'll show you export. We have the ability right now just to do a quick export of a CSV of all the sites. Oh, it's opening over here. Oh, hold on. Okay. So it exports everything. It's kind of cool because it also now adds in custom fields. It exports all the custom fields. The custom fields are not searchable. That's a issue, but yeah, that's pretty cool. H2A is, obviously an important one, but the problem, there's a whole other problem with this, because for a while it was a required field. It's no longer a required field. However, it defaults to false. It doesn't accept nil right now. And that's a big problem. And again, that was another thing that seems very small. Like I honestly thought this was going to be just such a small change because H2A used to not be a required field and it was could be empty. But then I don't know what happened. Someone changed it to make it required. And then that caused problems with the importer, which we fixed or whatever. But now it's like, it's no longer required, but it still doesn't accept nil. So it automatically defaults everything to false. So I don't know, it's kind of problematic, but like even Ramiro was saying, like, okay, that's a bigger thing to fix though, because you have to also look at the behavior within the app, make sure it's going to be the same behavior on the mobile app, make sure it's going to be the same behavior on the importer. And importer, I'll show you. Okay, imports. It's gotten a lot better, but we still have a lot of problems. A lot of bugs come up with importer. So clients ideally should be able to import their own data because they get their spreadsheets. Now, it's very hard for clients because they have to format their spreadsheet in just the right way. And they are getting information from many different sources. So that's very hard for them. And here's where, okay, they can choose a file. This tells you which are the required fields. And then if you go to this button about importing, this gives you the template spreadsheet. So this is what should be always correct, but yeah, hopefully it is. These red things indicate required fields. Now it's still showing H2A is required. And yeah, so it has to be imported just like this.
Oh, okay.
And so we have had a lot of problems again and again and again and again for a year with the importer. And we're getting better, but Nicole right now is trying to create tests, because I think we didn't have any automated tests for the importer. So Nicole is trying to create automated tests to help solve problems with the importer. But right now, if a client is trying to import, then they can try it. They can try it, and if it doesn't work, then they can send it to me, and people on the back end will upload it for them. But so that's the importer is a big thing.
And when you say import, the importing their data into the database, into the app database?
Yeah, like what does that look like? So basically they're getting these spreadsheets from Department of Labor, from migrant housing places, and they want all of that data in Vamos, and it also changes every year. So that's another big thing. How is it going to, how is it going to import? Which fields is it going to update? Is it going to update or is it going to replace? We don't want to replace some things because they work really hard to maybe put the description of the directions and how to get there. Where's?
And as okay, as it currently stands, when you import data into Vamos, you obviously need a certain format to have it in that.
Exactly. Exactly. And then we had to write a lot, the developers, not me, had to write a lot of code about that's not the one I want. They had to write a lot of code for what to do if it finds conflicting information. And so there's some things now. Now I can't even remember how we decided. Basically they just have to be very careful with their imports, because right now it will replace any information that they import. So if they do not want this site description, if they do not want that updated, they need to delete that column and do not upload it. And the other thing that they just fixed, this was kind of cool. Well, it was really good, is that it used to be that if a field was blank, it was going to overwrite whatever data was in there with the blank field. Now they just fixed that, so that's not going to happen anymore. So that's really good. But yeah, the importer has been a challenge, a big challenge, a much bigger challenge than we expected. So I think that's everything. Yeah, I don't know if that's a lot. I know it's so much information, but I think that that's probably enough information that you can at least play around with Vamos on your own. Everything in Code the Dream is sample data. It's not, you can play around with it. You can change things, you can add things. The other organizations, it's real data. Please don't touch that. But within Code the Dream organization, you can, play around as much as you want.
I've logged in already and I can see only Code the Dream. So
Yes.
I don't think we can harm our organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm either. I only see Code the Dream. No other in list.
Yeah.
On list.
But yeah, play around with it. Have fun. You can pretend like this was quite an extensive overview. I think this was much more than I gave. I don't know. I last did this with Brian and Amita because they were new to the team, but it was much shorter. so you've got a lot of detail.
But it's amazing. Thank you, Lori. It explains everything, and for me, it gave me, your presentation gave me overall understanding and even ideas, and even some ideas of how to improve something probably in the
Yeah.
future. It's amazing.
Good, awesome. That's
I
wonderful.
feel on board, onboarded.
Good.
The very last thing I have to actually set up the project on my
Oh,
computer.
yes, right, yes, yep, that's important. Let's see, I think we did all of this. I mentioned, oh, the roadmap, which we do have a document where we put some of that, but just Miguel was asking some about what we want to do next. Of course, offline mode is the biggest thing. Routes and offline mode were our two goals. And it really for last year, but nothing happened last year, just trying to stabilize things. And then, so that was our biggest goals for the season for this year. We missed our deadline for offline mode, but you know, we originally wanted it in March. Okay, now it's June and hopefully by July, but we're working on it. So offline mode is the next big feature, of course. Just continuing, you know, to knock out all of the bugs, even, you know, try and improve the user experience. We've got to still do more and more things with the consistency. You know, like there's places where the date is different every place. It's just, you know, it doesn't look good. Of course, we want to continue to improve UI UX. Documentation is also something that needs, you know, continuous work. In the Vamos project wiki, which is a wonderful, wonderful tool that Lauren created. There is a lot of information here. It's got our product vision statement, you know, it's got all the repos and everything here. And also on the front page is, if you scroll down to the end, it's Vamos user documentation. This is the user guide that Lauren, our previous project manager, wrote for clients. There's still things that need to be updated because there's just too much happening right now. But once we hire another person, I think then we'll be able to get some more done and get some more updated. And yeah, you can just use this as, you know, as you want. And then in QA, of course, Yancy is now taking over QA as the main person, and then it rotates who's going to be with her each time. Let's see. This is the QA checklist. This is what they use. And it's linked from here. It's right here. So you can see what she's done. So this sprint, it's Yancy and Narayan are doing it. And you can see this is the script, the different things that they try to do each time. Now, the problem is it hasn't been updated. So when we add new features, we also need to update this of what you need to test. But this is the web app. And this is the mobile app script. So they go down, this is what they try to do at each thing. Oh, ooh, what's that? Oh, that was, should see. We can see what's happening right now. Nancy and Narayan. Okay, Yancy and Narayan. Okay. All right. So they've done some stuff already. They're working on it. It's great. So as soon as they're done, if there's no big bugs, then we can deploy. So we'll have to wait for them to finish, and then they can deploy. Usually the release branch is created on the Thursday, like last Thursday before the sprint ends, the release branch is created. And that's when we try to get everybody like, okay, make sure as everything is done that can be done, that will get to the release branch. Then Cruz creates the release branch, and then Yancy and her partner will start to QA it. Hopefully the QA is done by ideally, you know, Monday. And then if there's any problems, they can fix it on Tuesday, ready to be released on Wednesday. So, yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
And is QA the same as testing?
Yes, it's like manual testing. They're actually going into the app like the user and in the staging environment. Oh, guys, I'm sorry, I have to go. I actually have an interview for that position in 5 minutes. So,
Okay. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you,
Thank
Lori.
you, Lori.
I hope this has been helpful. I'm sorry it took so much time. I did not think it was going to be 2 hours. I'm so sorry.
More than helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Amazing.
All right, reach out anytime. Just let me know if you have any questions. And
Have a great day.
thank you all for your work. Okay, have a great day.
Have a good
All right, thank you.
Bye.